He called her Njayo asterisk, a savage, assuming the black cleaning woman spoke no Korean as he berated her in front of his executives. But when he finished, she looked up from her cleaning cart, straightened her uniform, and replied in flawless ancient Gyeongsang dialect, "You haven't changed, asterisk dongseeing asterisk, still a bully." The dialect was from his hometown, a past he'd buried, and she was the secret he thought had died there. She is Adenola, a Nigerian immigrant cleaning the Seoul Grand's marble floors. He is CEO Kim Soon-chan, a self-made billionaire known for crushing competitors. His insult wasn't just racism, it was a calculated humiliation. But her response cracks open a door to their shared past in Gyeongsang province, a past he paid millions to erase. Now, with his entire board as witnesses, she holds the one secret that can unravel the empire he built on lies. Why did she wait 20 years to confront him? To understand the atomic weight of that single word, asterisk dongseeing asterisk little brother, you need to go back 2 decades, to a small port city in Gyeongsang province called Ulsan in the spring of 2004. Kim Soon-chan wasn't a billionaire then. He was a 19-year-old orphan dockworker sleeping in a storage container, his entire world confined to the rust and salt of the shipyards. Adenola wasn't a cleaning woman. She was a 15-year-old refugee, the daughter of a Nigerian merchant marine who jumped ship seeking asylum. They were 2 outsiders in a rigid insular community. He protected her from local gangs who targeted the foreign girl. She taught him English from smuggled textbooks, becoming his only friend. For 3 years they were family. Then in 2007, Soon-chan vanished. He left a note saying he was going to Seoul to chase a fortune and a promise to send for her. The money never came, the letters stopped. Adenola was deported the following year when her father's asylum claim failed. She spent 12 years in Lagos believing the boy she knew as Chan had simply forgotten her. She was wrong, he had done something far worse. Kim Soon-chan built his empire, KSD Holdings, on a foundation of 2 fabricated stories. Publicly, he was the genius dropout from Ulsan who taught himself coding in a PC bang. Privately, for the old money investors who needed a palatable origin, he was the secret scion of a prestigious family, his childhood spent in selective international schools. The gritty, impoverished truth, the years of hunger, the immigrant girl who saved him, was a liability. It was a story he buried with ruthless precision. He changed his legal name, erased his paper trail from Ulsan, and hired a firm to discreetly ensure no one from that life could surface. He believed he had succeeded. Meanwhile, Adenola fought her way back. She married a Korean logistics manager, securing a spousal visa and returning to Seoul in 2019. She took whatever work she could find, landing at the Seoul Grand Hotel. Her life was a quiet struggle of long hours and subtle slights, where 68% of foreign workers report facing racial discrimination. She assumed her childhood friend was lost forever. Until the day KSD Holdings booked the hotel's entire Imperial Ballroom for a quarterly board retreat. She was assigned to clean the executive lounge. When Kim Soon-chan walked in, surrounded by his suits, she recognized him instantly. The sharp jawline was the same. The cold, assessing eyes were new. He didn't recognize her. Why would he? He saw a black woman in a cleaning uniform, an invisible fixture. His insult, calling her Njayo to laugh with his directors, was meant to showcase his power. It was the final, unforgivable proof that the boy she protected was truly dead. But here's what Kim, in his arrogance, overlooked. The Gyeongsang dialect isn't just an accent, it's a fingerprint. Its specific guttural rhythms are ingrained in childhood, nearly impossible to master authentically as an adult. By speaking it perfectly, Adenola didn't just reveal she understood his insult. She proved she was from his world, from his specific corner of that world. The blood drained from his face not because a cleaner spoke Korean, but because a ghost from Ulsan had just whispered his deepest shame into the ears of his most important investors. The board members shifted uncomfortably. They didn't understand the dialect, but they understood seismic power shifts. The CEO was frozen. Adenola simply went back to polishing the marble table, the silence thickening like smoke. The confrontation should have ended there, a shocking moment, then a retreat. But Kim Soon-chan's survival instinct, sharpened from climbing out of poverty, made a catastrophic error. Instead of dismissing her, he ordered his head of security to detain her, to escort her to a private holding room. He called it a human resources matter. In reality, it was an abduction. As the guards led her away, Adenola didn't resist. She met Kim's eyes one more time and said in clear standard Korean for all to hear, "My husband expects me home by 6. His brother is a lieutenant with the Seoul Metropolitan Police. You should call him." It was a bluff. Her husband had no such brother, but it was a seed of doubt, a first thread of vulnerability. The door to the soundproofed room clicked shut, locking her inside with 2 guards. Downstairs, the board meeting dissolved into panicked whispers. Kim's carefully constructed identity had a crack, and every person in that room had heard it splinter. He had 2 hours until the next news cycle. 2 hours to make a woman disappear again permanently. But what he didn't know, what he couldn't possibly calculate, was that Adenola had spent her 12 years in Lagos not just surviving but preparing. She had learned from her father's defeat, and she had brought her own ledger of secrets to Seoul. The holding room was a vault of silence, designed for discreet conversations that never happened. The two guards didn't touch her. They just stood between her and the door, their expressions blank. Adenola sat in a leather chair, her cleaning uniform a stark contrast to the opulence. She didn't plead, she didn't cry. She reached into the deep pocket of her uniform and pulled out a small, encrypted thumb drive. She placed it on the glass table with a deliberate click. "Before you decide what to do with me," she said in calm Korean, "play this for your boss, tell him it's a preview." One guard hesitated, then took the drive. 15 minutes later, Kim Soon-chan stormed into the room alone. His composure was gone, replaced by a raw, violent confusion. He slapped the thumb drive down. "What is this? Blackmail? You think some edited audio file matters?" "It's not audio," Adenola said. "It's a ledger, page 1 of 17. It details the $2.3 million in consulting fees you funneled through a shell company in the British Virgin Islands to Councilman Park's nephew in 2018. The payment that secured the rezoning for your flagship tower." Kim froze. That transaction was buried under 7 layers of offshore obfuscation. It was impossible. "You're lying. You cleaned toilets in Lagos." "I transcribed shipping manifests for a customs broker," Adenola corrected him quietly. "And I learned how to follow money. When I came back to Seoul and saw your face on every billboard, I got curious. I still had friends in Ulsan. The boy who used to run errands for you at the docks, Min Ho, he's a data analyst now. He doesn't like what you became either." This was the first pivot. Adenola wasn't a passive victim waiting for revenge. She was an archivist. For 3 years, in the quiet hours after her cleaning shifts, she had been reconstructing Kim Soon-chan's real history, cross-referencing public records with whispers from the past. She knew about the fraud not from hacking but from the human weakness Kim forgot: loyalty. The people he stepped on in Ulsan remembered, and they talked to the one person who showed them kindness decades ago. Kim's mind raced, calculating damage. One corruption scandal could be contained. But the thumb drive was a symptom, not the disease. "What do you want?" "Money, a visa for your entire family, name it." "I want you to call a press conference," Adenola said, "tomorrow morning, and you will resign as CEO of KST Holdings, citing personal reasons." He laughed, a harsh, brittle sound. "You're insane. I'll have you declared mentally ill, deported by tonight. If I'm not home by 6, and if I don't call a specific number by 6:05, the full 17-page ledger along with scanned copies of your original Ulsan residency papers gets emailed to every major news outlet in Seoul. The files are not on that drive. They're held by someone you can't reach." She leaned forward. "You spent 20 years building a fortress, Dongxing, but you built it on sand and you never checked to see who was digging beneath it." The bluff about the police lieutenant was gone, replaced by a far more credible threat: systematic exposure. Kim left the room, ordering the guards to watch her. He retreated to his penthouse suite to think, but the clock was ticking and the board was restless. The chairman, an old-school industrialist named Chairman Kwon, demanded an explanation for the scene in the lounge. Kim fed him a lie about a disgruntled former employee seeking extortion. Chairman Kwon, who had built his fortune on reading men, didn't believe him. He made a call of his own. While Kim was trapped in his suite, a different kind of interrogation was happening downstairs. Hotel security, under pressure from an anonymous tip, reviewed the lounge footage. The audio was muffled, but the body language was crystal clear. The CEO insulting a staff member, the staff member's calm reply, the visible shock on Kim's face. This wasn't a corporate matter. This was a public relations detonation waiting to happen. A junior board member, savvy with social media, whispered the real danger. "If this video leaks with the right caption, 'Billionaire humiliates immigrant worker,' the international press will feast for weeks. Our ESG ratings will vaporize." The problem was no longer just Adenola's thumb drive. It was the 23 smartphones that had been in that lounge, many held by junior executives who felt no particular loyalty to Kim Soon-chan. The incident was already escaping the room. Kim, realizing containment had failed, switched tactics. He returned to the holding room, this time with a contract and a pen. A non-disclosure agreement promising a 7-figure settlement, a luxury apartment, and a senior consultant title at a subsidiary company, all in exchange for her silence and a recorded statement saying the lounge incident was a misunderstanding. He slid it across the table. "This is your only way out," he said. "Sign it and you never clean a floor again." Adenola didn't even look at the paper. "You still don't understand. This was never about money, it was about the truth. My father died in Lagos, broken because his asylum case was mishandled by a Korean official who my research suggests was on the payroll of a certain logistics company you owned a silent stake in. You didn't just abandon me, you profited from the system that broke my family." This was the second devastating pivot. The conflict was deeper than childhood betrayal. It was about collateral damage. Kim's ruthless ascent had created victims in its wake, and Adenola's family was among them. The personal was now profoundly criminal. Panic began to edge into Kim's eyes. He was no longer dealing with a memory from his past. He was facing the living consequence of his choices. He stood up, his voice dropping to a venomous whisper. "You have no proof of that, don't I?" Adenola said. "The official's name is Commissioner Lee. He retired to Jeju Island 2 years ago. His bank records from 2010 to 2015 show regular deposits from a now-defunct shell corporation. The same corporation appears in your ledger as a security consultancy expense. The pattern isn't complicated, Soon-chan, it's just greedy." At that moment, Kim's head of security entered, his face pale. He whispered urgently in Kim's ear. The board had called an emergency vote. A motion of no confidence was on the table. The leverage had flipped. Kim wasn't just fighting a woman from his past. He was fighting for control of his own company, with the board using the chaos he created as the perfect excuse to oust him. He had one move left, a dangerous, irreversible move. He ordered his security chief to secure the asset, meaning Adenola, and move her to a more remote location. He wasn't thinking about ledgers or press conferences anymore. He was thinking about making a problem disappear permanently. But as the guards moved toward her, Adenola finally showed a flicker of her own plan. "Check your phone, Soon-chan," she said. He did. There was a single new message from an unknown number. It was a live feed showing the front entrance of the Seoul Grand Hotel. And standing there talking to a uniformed police officer was Adenola's husband. And he wasn't alone. He was with a man in a sharp suit holding a briefcase, a lawyer from one of the most aggressive human rights litigation firms in the country. The message below the video read, "The first pre-litigation notice is being served to the hotel management now. Discovery begins in 48 hours. She had never been alone in that room. She had a whole team on the outside, and she had just forced Kim to reveal his ultimate play, escalating to coercion and planned abduction, in front of witnesses he could no longer control. The trap was no longer around her, it was around him." The board's emergency vote wasn't a deliberation, it was an execution. With Kim trapped in the holding room, Chairman Kwon convened the meeting. The motion was simple: immediate suspension of CEO Kim Soon-chan pending a full independent audit of all offshore transactions. It passed 11-3. The message was delivered to Kim's phone as he stared at the live feed of the lawyer at the hotel door. His empire was crumbling from the inside and the outside simultaneously. But here's what the board underestimated. Kim's instinct wasn't to surrender, it was to burn everything down. He turned to Adenola, his voice chillingly calm. "You win, the company is yours, but you forget I built this with people who have much more to lose than stock options." He walked out, leaving the guards. He wasn't going to the boardroom, he was going to his penthouse to access his true failsafe. Meanwhile, Adenola's legal team moved with surgical speed. The pre-litigation notice was a spark. Within the hour, 3 major financial news networks had the tip. The headline wasn't about racism or a hidden past, it was sharper: KSD Holdings CEO under board revolt amid allegations of fraud, bribery. The stock began to tumble in after-hours trading, but the real weapon was still in Adenola's pocket. On her encrypted phone, she sent a second command: release Package 1. Package 1 was not the full ledger. It was a single, verified document, the contract showing Kim's payment to the shell company linked to Councilman Park's nephew. It was sent anonymously to the Anti-Corruption and Civil Rights Commission. The goal wasn't public scandal yet, it was to activate the government's own machinery against him. Now the situation had 3 active fronts: the crumbling board, the approaching legal storm, and a dormant government investigation about to wake up. And then the 4th front opened. Kim's head of security, a man named Ju, entered the holding room. He dismissed the other guards. He didn't look at Adenola with hostility, he looked at her with weary recognition. "My mother was from Ulsan," he said quietly. "She knew your mother at the refugee clinic. She said you were a brave girl." This was the unexpected pivot. Loyalty had its limits. Ju had followed Kim's orders for years, but the move to kidnap a cleaning woman in a 5-star hotel with lawyers and police now involved crossed a line from corporate espionage into something that could land him in prison for 20 years. He placed a keycard on the table. "The service elevator at the end of the hall is unmonitored for the next 10 minutes. It goes to the basement parking. Your husband is in a grey Kia in Section B." Adenola didn't move. "Why?" Ju sighed. "Because the man I worked for died in that lounge today. The one who replaced him is a cornered animal, and cornered animals get everyone around them killed." He turned to leave. "The CCTV in this corridor will have a 10-minute loop error, that's all I can give you." Adenola took the keycard, but as she moved to the door, Ju added one last crucial piece of information. "He's not in the penthouse, he went to the server room on sub-level 2. He keeps a physical air-gapped server there. If he's going there, it means he's planning to trigger the Scorched Earth protocol." Adenola stopped. "Scorched Earth, a digital dead man's switch," Ju said. "If he inputs his code, it releases every piece of dirt he has on every board member, every politician, every rival. It would collapse the company and take half the city's elite down with it. He'd do it just to prove he could." The stakes just exploded. This was no longer about one man's downfall. It was about preventing a chain reaction that would devastate the entire Korean business landscape, destroying thousands of jobs and potentially triggering a financial crisis. Adenola had a choice: escape to safety or descend deeper into the maze to stop a doomsday device. She looked at the keycard, then back at Ju. "How do I get to sub-level 2? He told her. As she slipped into the service corridor, the game changed entirely. She was no longer the quarry. She was the only person close enough to intercept a catastrophe. The service levels of the Seoul Grand were a labyrinth of concrete and piping, a stark contrast to the gold and marble above. She found the maintenance stairwell and descended. Sublevel 2 housed the hotel's infrastructure, roaring generators, climate control, and behind a reinforced door marked authorized personnel only, the private server room Kim had secretly leased. She used Ju's keycard, the door clicked open. Inside, the room was cold and humming. Kim Soon-chan stood before a sleek black server rack, a laptop open on a console beside it. He didn't turn around. "I knew Ju would betray me," he said. Sentimentality was always his flaw. He typed a command. "It doesn't matter, the protocol is armed. The code is a 60-minute countdown. If I don't enter the reset sequence from this terminal every hour, the files blast to every address on the list. The board can fire me, the police can arrest me, but if I'm in a cell when the clock hits 0, they'll be arresting themselves too." He finally turned, a twisted smile on his face. "You wanted to bring down the king? Congratulations, you just doomed the entire kingdom." Adenola approached slowly. This was the "it gets worse" moment, magnified 1,000 times. Kim had turned his own villainy into a hostage situation, with the city's economy as the hostage. "You're insane," she whispered. "I'm pragmatic," he countered. "This was always the endgame. Power isn't about having the most money, it's about having the most leverage, and I have leverage over everyone." He gestured to the laptop screen showing the countdown, 59 minutes and 14 seconds. "Now we negotiate, you call off your lawyers. You sign the NDA, you publicly state this was all a misunderstanding. In return, I don't burn the world to the ground." But Adenola was looking past him at the server rack. Her eyes, trained from years of transcribing complex manifests, caught a detail. The server was a custom model, but the network router was a standard commercial brand, and it had a tiny blinking green light indicating a hardwired internet connection. An air-gapped server shouldn't have that. "It's not really air-gapped, is it?" she said. "You need remote access to update your leverage, to add new files." Kim's smile faltered for a fraction of a second. It was all the confirmation she needed. The server was connected to the outside world, which meant it was vulnerable. She reached into her other uniform pocket and pulled out a second, smaller device, a pocket-sized signal jammer her data analyst friend Min-ho had given her. "A gift," Min-ho had said. "In case you ever need to have a private conversation." She activated it. The blinking green light on the router went dark. The laptop screen flickered, then displayed a connection lost error. The countdown froze. Kim stared, disbelief turning to rage. "What did you do?" "I grounded you," Adenola said. "Your dead man's switch needs a phone call to go off. I just cut the line." He lunged for her, but she was ready. She sidestepped, using the movement Hong, the hotel's self-defense instructor, had taught the staff. Kim stumbled against the server rack. In that moment, the door to the server room burst open. It wasn't security. It was Chairman Kwon and 2 other senior board members, followed by a pale-faced Jew. They had been monitoring the building's security feeds. They had seen everything. They had heard everything. Chairman Kwon looked at the frozen countdown on the laptop, then at Kim, then at Adenola. His face was a mask of grim fury. "Soon-chan," he said, his voice like ice, "you are terminated, effective immediately. You will surrender all access codes to the IT forensics team we have waiting outside. If you do not, we will charge you with corporate sabotage and treason, and you will spend the rest of your life in a cell that makes this room look like a palace." The leverage had evaporated. Kim was surrounded, outmaneuvered, and utterly alone. He looked at Adenola not with hatred now, but with a hollow, exhausted confusion. "All this," he whispered, "for a girl from the docks?" Adenola met his gaze. "No," she said, "for the man who left her there." The board members took control of the server. The countdown was disarmed. The immediate threat was over. But as they led Kim away, Adenola knew the true battle was just beginning. The legal fights, the public revelation of her identity, the unraveling of KST Holdings, all of it was a tidal wave about to crash ashore. She had stopped the detonation, but the shockwaves would reshape everything, and she was now at the center of the storm. The silence in the server room was broken by the distant wail of police sirens, growing louder, climbing down through the building's floors toward them. Chairman Kwon's forensic team arrived first, a group of severe-looking men in dark suits who took custody of the server and the laptop without a word. Kim Soon-chan was escorted out not by hotel security, but by 2 plainclothes officers from the Financial Crimes Unit. He didn't look at Adenola as he passed. The man who had built a billion-dollar empire was leaving in handcuffs, his head bowed, his story already being rewritten without him. For Adenola, the next 72 hours were a blur of structured chaos. She gave a formal statement to the police with her lawyer present. The narrative that emerged was carefully shaped, a case of attempted coercion, illegal confinement, and the discovery of evidence suggesting broader financial crimes. Her identity as Kim's childhood acquaintance was noted, but the deeper, more personal history of betrayal was kept out of the official record, for now. The news, however, exploded. By the following morning, the story was the lead on every broadcast. The initial headline was corporate, KST Holdings CEO arrested in dramatic hotel boardroom coup, but by the afternoon the human angle broke. A cell-phone video from the lounge shot by a terrified intern leaked online. The clip was shaky, the audio tinny, but it was unmistakable. The billionaire's sneering insult, the cleaning woman's calm reply in the rough Gyeongsang dialect, his face transforming from arrogance to sheer terror. The internet did the rest. Linguistic experts dissected her dialect, confirming its authenticity as native to Ulsan. Internet sleuths connected the dots, unearthing Kim's legally erased childhood records. The story evolved from a financial scandal to a modern-day myth, the invisible worker who toppled a giant. Adenola and her husband were moved to a secure hotel under police protection. The onslaught was overwhelming. Interview requests from every major network in Korea and internationally, offers for book deals, a tidal wave of social media support mixed with the predictable undercurrent of racist vitriol and accusations of being a gold digger. Through it all, she remained focused on two objectives: ensuring Kim faced justice and protecting the people who had helped her. The legal proceedings moved with surprising speed, fueled by the board's desperate cooperation. Chairman Kwon, to save the company, offered Kim as a sacrifice. The full 17-page ledger was handed to prosecutors. The corruption case was airtight. Kim was charged with bribery, fraud, embezzlement, and attempted coercion. His bail was denied. The trial would take months, but the outcome was virtually certain. But the true closure came in a smaller, private courtroom 3 weeks later. This was for the charge of illegal confinement and verbal abuse. Adenola testified. For the first time in a formal setting, she told the complete story, not of fraud but of friendship, of the boy in Ulsan, of the promise to send for her, of the 20-year silence. She spoke of returning to Seoul, of seeing him on billboards, and of the moment she realized the kind of man he had chosen to become. She did not cry, her voice was steady, her Korean flawless. When she finished, the judge called a recess. The following week, Kim Soon-chan's legal team approached with a plea deal. He would plead guilty to all charges related to Adenola, including the unlawful confinement and defamation, in exchange for her dropping a separate civil suit for emotional damages. More importantly, he would provide a full public affidavit detailing his true origins and his systematic erasure of his past, to be released upon his sentencing. It was a surrender. He was accepting not just prison, but the total annihilation of the false identity he'd crafted. Adenola agreed. The sentencing hearing was the final act. Kim stood before the judge, a diminished figure in a standard-issue prison uniform. When given a chance to speak, he turned not to the judge but to Adenola, who sat in the front row of the public gallery. His voice was hollow, stripped of all its former power. "I am guilty," he said, "not just of these crimes but of a greater one. I believed that to become someone I had to stop being the person you knew. I was wrong. That boy was the only real thing I ever was. Everything after was just a shell. I am sorry, Nuna." He used the honorific for an older sister, the childhood term she hadn't heard in 2 decades. The judge sentenced him to a combined term of 14 years. As he was led away, the myth solidified. But for Adenola, the victory was quieter, more complex. The public adoration was overwhelming but also alienating. She was hailed as a symbol, a hero for immigrant workers, a lesson in hubris. Yet in the quiet of her new, temporary apartment, she felt the weight of a different question: what now? The answer came from an unexpected place. Chairman Kwon, now interim CEO, requested a meeting. He came to her, a profound sign of respect. He did not offer her money, he offered her a position, a newly created role, Vice President of Ethical Compliance and Labor Relations for KSD Holdings. The mandate would be to audit all subsidiaries, dismantle the old corrupt networks, and establish new, transparent protocols for hiring and treating foreign workers. It was a staggering offer. It was also a brilliant public relations move for the company. They would hire the woman their former CEO had abused to reform them. Adenola consulted her husband, her lawyer, and herself. Then she made a counter-proposal. She would accept, but on 3 conditions. First, the role would report directly to a committee that included external human rights auditors. Second, a substantial portion of her salary would fund a foundation in her father's name, providing legal aid to migrant workers in Korea. Third, her first official act would be to secure proper, permanent visas and back pay for the entire cleaning and maintenance staff at the Seoul Grand Hotel, including those hired through exploitative subcontractors. Chairman Kwon, seeing both the morality and the shrewd publicity of it, agreed. And here is the final, surprising detail, the one that brings the story full circle. On her first day in the corporate headquarters, Adenola did not wear a designer suit. She wore a modern, dignified version of a service uniform, a tailored grey blazer and pants, a subtle, powerful statement. As she walked through the gleaming lobby, employees whispered, but she walked straight past the executive elevators. She took the service elevator to the basement. She sought out the cleaning staff break room. She introduced herself, not as vice president, but as Adenola, who used to clean at the Grand. She spoke to them in a mix of Korean and the English many of them understood. She told them about the new hotline, the foundation, the policy changes. For the first time that day, she smiled. The story that began with a humiliating assumption that a black cleaning woman couldn't speak Korean ended with her fluent voice reshaping an entire corporation's conscience. She didn't just get revenge, she built something new from the ruins of the old lie. Kim Soon-chan tried to erase his past to gain the world and lost everything. Adenola embraced her entire history, the refugee, the cleaner, the archivist, the survivor, and found a power more durable than any billion-one empire, integrity spoken in the true tongue of home. So what is the true currency of power in a world built on surfaces? We are conditioned to recognize it in tailored suits, in corner offices, in the cold weight of a billion-one valuation. Kim Soon-chan mastered that language. He spoke it fluently, but he made one fatal error. He believed it was the only language that mattered. He forgot that real power doesn't come from what you acquire. It comes from what you cannot erase, your origin, your truth. The unvarnished story of who you are when no one is watching. Adenola's victory was not her title, her office, or the inevitable media fame. It was the restoration of a simple, devastating fact. She was always someone. Long before she walked into that lobby, she was a daughter, a friend, a student of languages and ledgers, a survivor of systems designed to break her. The uniform was a costume. The dialect was her proof of life. Her power was the patience to wait, the clarity to see the crack in his armor, and the courage to speak her truth into that silence. This story echoes beyond a hotel lobby in Seoul. It asks the question we all navigate every day: who do we overlook? Who do we dismiss based on the role they play, the clothes they wear, the accent they speak with? The research is clear: these assumptions are not just personal slights. They are the architecture of systemic discrimination affecting 68 out of every 100 foreign workers. But what the data can't capture is the silent ledger every underestimated person keeps. The record of slights, the calculations, the hidden competence waiting for its moment. Kim sought a kingdom built on a buried past. Adenola proved that the past is not a grave, it's a foundation. The most formidable force in any room is not the loudest voice but the truest story, and everyone, from the cleaner to the CEO, has one. If you believe that dignity is the ultimate form of strength, and that everyone deserves to be seen in their full, complex humanity, then this is your channel. We document the stories where the underdog doesn't just win, they redefine the entire game. Hit subscribe and ring the bell, because the world is full of people speaking their truth. You won't want to miss what they say next.